You've lost arguments you were right about. You've lost interviews you were qualified for. You've lost someone you loved. Not because of what you said, because of one invisible rule running underneath every conversation you've ever had. Once you see it, you cannot unsee it. Here's the rule: whoever needs the conversation least controls where it goes. That's it. That's the whole rule. 6 words could end most of the advice you've ever gotten about communication. But 6 words doesn't mean simple, because this rule is running right now in every text you send, every meeting you sit in, every relationship you're trying to hold onto. Let's start small. You text someone. They don't reply for 3 hours. You start composing follow-up texts in your head. Should you send a meme to seem casual? Should you just wait? Should you text someone else to make it look like you're busy too? Notice what just happened. The other person didn't do anything. They didn't manipulate you. They didn't even mean to. They simply needed the conversation less than you did in that moment, and that gap in need is what handed them control. This is why the friend who texts back in 10 seconds always feels slightly less interesting than the one who takes a day. Not because they are less interesting, because urgency reads as need, and need reads as low value. Our brains made that trade a long time before texting existed. Here's the part that should bother you. This isn't a quirky dating thing. It's not a play hard to get trick. It's a hardwired status calculation your brain runs in under a second, in literally every social situation you're in, and it scales. The stakes don't stay this small. Take it into a job interview. 2 candidates, same qualifications, same resume. Candidate A walks in and overexplains everything, fills every silence, laughs a beat too long at the interviewer's jokes. Candidate B answers the question, stops talking, and lets the silence sit. Candidate B gets the offer almost every time, not because B was smarter, often B wasn't. B simply didn't perform need, and the room read that as B having other options. Other options the interviewer suddenly wanted to compete for. Same 6-word rule, different room, higher cost. Take it into a negotiation. The side that can actually walk away, not just bluff it, wins the terms almost every time, regardless of who's right. Negotiators have a term for this. Your best alternative if the deal falls apart. The stronger your alternative, the less you need this conversation, and the more this conversation bends toward you. Take it into a relationship. The partner who can picture their life without you sets the terms of the relationship you're in, even if they never say a word about it. This is how people stay in relationships where they give more and get less for years without ever being able to name what's happening to them. It's not that they're mistreated in any one moment. It's that the need gap was set early, and every conversation since has been downstream of it. So if this is just true, if needing less is just the move, that's a fairly bleak way to live. Detach from everything. Want nothing. Never let anyone know you care. But here's where it gets strange. The most effective negotiators in the world, the people whose literal job is to get someone out of a room alive, do not play it cold. Some of the best ones do the opposite of what we just described on purpose. They lean toward warmth. They name the other person's fear out loud. They make themselves look more invested, not less. And it works even better than the cold version. I'm going to show you exactly why in a minute, because it's the part of this rule almost nobody understands, and it's the difference between using this and being used by it. First, you need to see how badly this rule gets weaponized, because once you do, you'll start spotting it everywhere. Gaslighting runs on this rule. The manipulator manufactures distance, pulls warmth away, goes quiet, gets busy, specifically to widen the need gap. The other person, suddenly more invested than they were 5 minutes ago, starts chasing, starts apologizing for things they didn't do, starts negotiating against themselves. The manipulator didn't have to say a single false thing. They just managed the gap. Sales runs on this rule deliberately by design. Only 2 left. This offer expires tonight. Every scarcity tactic you've ever rolled your eyes at exists because it manufactures need on your side. It makes you feel like you need the deal more than the seller needs you to take it, even when the opposite is true. Workplaces run on this rule. The employee everyone tiptoes around isn't usually the most talented person in the building. They're the person the building has quietly decided it needs more than they need the building. Talent gets you in the room. Perceived indispensability is what runs it. And here's the part that should actually unsettle you. You cannot opt out of this rule by refusing to play it. Silence is a move. Distance is a move. Even doing nothing gets read by the other person's brain as a data point about how much you need them. There is no neutral position. You are always inside this rule, whether you intend to be or not. Which brings us back to the negotiators. Here's what they figured out that most advice gets backwards. The rule isn't need less. The rule is control what the other side believes about your need. Those sound similar. They are not the same thing. A negotiator who shows zero empathy doesn't read as powerful. They read as a threat. And threats make people dig in, not open up. So the best ones do something counterintuitive. They get curious instead of distant. They say the unsaid thing out loud. It sounds like you feel like you have no way out, and that single move does something strange. It makes the other person feel understood instead of cornered. And a person who feels understood lowers their guard in a way that fear never accomplishes. That's not weakness. That's precision. They're not pretending to need nothing. They're choosing deliberately what the other person believes about what they need, a completely different skill than just going cold and waiting for someone to chase you. That's the flip side of the rule. Coldness isn't power. Control over the story the other person tells themselves about your need, that's power. And you can build that without lying to anyone or disappearing on anyone. So here's how you actually use this. 1. Before any conversation that matters, an interview, a hard talk with a partner, a negotiation, do the work that makes you genuinely less dependent on the outcome beforehand. Apply to 5 jobs, not 1. Have a life outside the relationship you're trying to save. Real options change what you project. You can't fully fake this part, and people can tell when you're trying to. 2. Stop narrating your need out loud. You don't have to hide that you care. You have to stop performing it in real time, the over-explaining, the filled silences, the 3 follow-up texts. Say what you mean once, then let it sit. 3. When you want someone to actually open up, not just chase you, try the negotiator's move instead of the cold one. Name what you think they're feeling. Seems like you're frustrated, does more work than 3 days of silence ever will. That's the rule, not need nothing. Control what the room believes you need and choose that on purpose, instead of leaking it by accident in every silence you fill and every text you send too fast. You'll notice it now in every meeting, every text thread, every relationship you're in. That's not a coincidence. It was never not there. You just didn't have a name for it yet. Now you do.